What you're looking at isn't just a tunnel. It's the largest underground flood diversion facility on Earth. But calling it large is like calling Mount Everest a hill. Today, we're stepping into one of the most ambitious civil engineering projects of the modern era, the hidden infrastructure that transformed Tokyo's greatest geographic vulnerability into a masterpiece of resilience. Tokyo's relationship with water has always been complicated. The city sits on a vast alluvial floodplain, with much of its eastern and low-lying districts resting below sea level. Imagine trying to build a metropolis inside a giant bathtub. It's a fantastic environment for wetlands and waterfowl, but a logistical nightmare for millions of residents, businesses, and critical infrastructure. For centuries, Tokyo has fought an uphill battle against seasonal typhoons, monsoon surges, and river overflow. Historical archives from the Edo period document catastrophic inundations as early as the 1600s, when wooden levees and manual drainage were the only defenses available. But it was the explosive urbanization of the post-war era that fundamentally altered the city's hydrology. As forests were paved over and natural soil was replaced with concrete and asphalt, rainwater lost its ability to seep into the ground. Instead, it raced across impermeable surfaces, overwhelming aging drainage networks and turning streets into rivers within minutes.
The breaking point arrived in 1991. A particularly vicious typhoon swept across the Kanto region, dumping unprecedented volumes of rain in a short window. Despite existing flood control measures, entire neighborhoods vanished beneath waist-deep water. Transportation grids paralyzed. Millions suffered power outages. The economic toll ran into billions of yen, but the human cost was far heavier. It became painfully clear. Incremental upgrades weren't enough. Tokyo needed a paradigm shift. That shift became the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel. The decision to greenlight the project wasn't made lightly. It required navigating complex political approvals, securing massive funding, and betting on untested subterranean engineering at a scale rarely attempted. But the stakes justified the ambition. The core objective was straightforward yet monumental: intercept floodwaters before they reach populated zones, store them safely underground, and release them at a controlled pace once the storm passes. Think of it as a subterranean bypass system for water, but instead of easing traffic, it's diverting disaster.
But how does a single network actually manage the kind of water volumes that cripple a megacity? And more importantly, is one tunnel system enough? The answer lies in realizing this isn't a tunnel at all. It's a coordinated underground ecosystem. Construction kicked off in 1992 and spanned 14 grueling years, finally coming online in 2006. The facility consists of 5 colossal vertical shafts, each functioning as a massive intake funnel. These silos are linked by 6.4 kilometers of reinforced concrete tunnels, all descending roughly 50 meters beneath the surface. To put that depth into perspective, it places the network well below building foundations, subway lines, and utility grids, ensuring it operates independently of surface disruption. The tunnels themselves are cavernous, wide and tall enough to theoretically accommodate a commercial passenger aircraft. You could fly a plane through them, though I'd strongly advise against attempting it. All of this feeds into a central reservoir, affectionately nicknamed the Underground Temple. The space is roughly the size of 2 standard football fields and can hold a staggering 670,000 cubic meters of water. That's the equivalent of 268 Olympic-sized swimming pools, all suspended beneath a city that never stops moving.
The results speak for themselves. Since becoming fully operational, the system has reduced flood-related damage in Tokyo by an estimated 90%. Economically, it has prevented tens of billions of yen in potential losses from property destruction, business interruptions, and emergency response costs. But the true measure of its success isn't found in spreadsheets. It's in the quiet confidence of residents living in historically vulnerable wards. For decades, typhoon season meant sleepless nights, sandbags, and the constant fear of rising water. Today, families can rest easier knowing that a silent, subterranean guardian is actively pulling floodwaters away from their homes. The psychological shift alone has been transformative. Beyond immediate safety, the tunnels have quietly reshaped urban planning. Zones previously labeled high risk or undevelopable are now being integrated into residential and commercial projects, knowing that catastrophic inundation is no longer a certainty. The infrastructure has effectively unlocked land, expanded economic activity, and reinforced Tokyo's reputation as a city that builds for the next century, not just the next election cycle. It's even become an unlikely cultural landmark. When the system is idle and weather conditions permit, guided public tours descend into the underground temple. Visitors walk along elevated catwalks surrounded by cathedral-like concrete pillars and towering intake shafts, gaining a visceral appreciation for the invisible engineering that keeps modern urban life possible. Yet, no project of this magnitude exists without friction. The initial construction tag hovered around 230 billion yen, roughly $2 billion, and that figure doesn't account for decades of ongoing maintenance, sensor upgrades, and structural inspections. The facility demands immense electrical power to run its pumps, control systems, and ventilation networks, raising legitimate questions about its carbon footprint. There's an uncomfortable irony in fighting one environmental crisis by potentially exacerbating another. Additionally, environmental scientists have voiced concerns about what happens to the water being discharged. Urban floodwater isn't pure rain. It carries street runoff, microplastics, heavy metals, and industrial residues. Pumping millions of liters directly into the Edogawa River without advanced filtration introduces ecological trade-offs that still require long-term management. Then there's the looming question of climate resilience. As global temperatures rise, storm intensity, precipitation volume, and sea level surges are projected to exceed historical baselines. Engineers are actively modeling whether the current capacity will remain sufficient through mid-century, or if incremental expansions will be necessary. Tokyo's planners aren't waiting to find out. The next phase of development leans heavily into digital integration. Artificial intelligence and Internet of Things networks are being woven into the control architecture, enabling predictive flood management. Instead of reacting to rising river gauges, the system will soon analyze meteorological data, soil saturation levels, and tidal patterns to anticipate overflow events hours in advance. Pumps could pre-position water, silo gates could adjust proactively, and drainage grids could synchronize automatically. There are also active discussions about extending the tunnel network into adjacent wards, creating a broader subterranean safety net. Simultaneously, researchers are exploring renewable energy microgrids to power the pumps, alongside modular filtration units that could clean floodwater before release, turning a liability into a managed resource. While Shiloh Tokyo's project remains uniquely tailored to its geography, the underlying philosophy is increasingly relevant worldwide. Extreme weather no longer respects borders. In October 2024, Hurricane Milton battered Florida, unleashing up to 18 inches of rain in localized zones. Existing drainage infrastructure collapsed under the volume. River basins overflowed. Like the Hillsborough and Cypress Creek shattered historical flood records. The slow-moving St. Johns River reached major flood stage across multiple counties, triggering over 1,000 water rescues and displacing tens of thousands. It's a stark reminder that even developed regions with modern drainage networks can be overwhelmed when precipitation exceeds design thresholds. Could a Tokyo-style subterranean diversion system have mitigated the damage? Absolutely, but with crucial caveats. Engineering solutions aren't plug-and-play. Florida's limestone bedrock, high water table, and coastal proximity require fundamentally different approaches than Tokyo's compacted alluvial soil and dense urban canopy. Yet the core principle remains transferable: intercept, store, and release. Imagine underground retention caverns beneath Orlando's floodplains, or pressurized diversion tunnels routing excess water away from Miami's vulnerable coastal corridors. The geology would dictate the design, but the strategic framework could dramatically reduce surface inundation. The same logic applies elsewhere. Bangladesh, crisscrossed by hundreds of rivers and sitting on a vast delta, experiences annual monsoon flooding that displaces millions. Strategically placed underground channels could complement traditional embankments, buying time for evacuations and protecting critical agriculture. The Netherlands, already a global leader in water management, has begun exploring subsurface reservoirs to supplement its iconic dike network, especially as North Sea storm surges intensify. Venice, battling chronic high-tide flooding and rising Adriatic levels, could integrate underground diversion alongside its Mosey barrier system to handle extreme rainfall events that slip past tidal defenses. Even New Orleans, still refining its post-Katrina flood protection strategy, is evaluating subterranean water storage as a complementary layer to its elevated levees and pump stations.
Implementing these systems anywhere requires political will, sustained funding, and interdisciplinary engineering collaboration. But as climate-driven weather events grow more frequent and severe, the cost of inaction will inevitably surpass the cost of innovation. Traditional surface drainage, no matter how well maintained, simply cannot keep pace with the new hydrological reality. Underground diversion isn't a silver bullet, but it's a proven blueprint for buying cities the one thing they need most during extreme weather: time. Tokyo's flood tunnels remind us that resilience isn't about fighting nature. It's about understanding it, redirecting it, and building infrastructure that works with planetary forces rather than against them. The project faced skepticism, budget overruns, and engineering hurdles, but it ultimately delivered something money can't easily quantify: peace of mind for millions. As urban populations swell and climate patterns shift, the question won't be whether cities can afford to build subterranean water management systems. It will be whether they can afford not to.
So, what about your city? Is it built on a floodplain, a coastal basin, or a region where drainage systems already groan under seasonal storms? Could an underground diversion network transform your community's relationship with extreme weather? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into hidden infrastructure fascinating, hit that like button, subscribe for more explorations into the engineering that quietly shapes our world, and I'll see you in the next one.